Remember a long time ago, well, 2 weeks ago when I reviewed these filmed campaign settings, I said that I did not review a lot of campaign settings on my channel and that it was more an exception than a rule. Well, all of that just changed because thanks to Ulraunt we can now visit Acheron, a plane of pure misery, pure evil, eternal struggle, eternal battle and a lot of danger. Are you ready for 300 pages full of complete and wicked awesomeness? Yes, I'm not kidding. This tome is 306 pages thick and it is completely filled to the brim with world building, player options, dungeon master options, optional rules, new beasts, new spells, new ways to cast magic, and it is all in the world of Acheron. So if you want to play in a campaign setting like Acheron where there is internal struggle and evil and everything, this one is for you. It is very big. It is as big as the Tome of Beasts from Kobold Press, but it is a campaign setting and it is full of stuff for you to use, and it will give you weeks, months, years, decades of D&D pleasure. If you do not know what Acheron actually is, well, let me explain to you really quickly. It is a plane of existence that you can use for your players to travel to. And it is a really weird plane of existence that lives right next to the 9 hells, and it's somewhere in the planes thingy, and it's really weird. I've never really been into all the different kinds of planes and where they are. I mean, as a player I visited some, but I've never really been into where they are with each other and stuff like that. But anyway, next to the 9 hells there is Acheron. And Acheron is a plane of existence that has 4 layers. 4 layers that each have a name, and every layer consists of a enormous amount of floating cubes. Like almost continent sized, like a continent like Europe or America or whatever sized cubes, and there's smaller cubes and there's bigger cubes, and they all float, and they all float on one level. So there's one level full of cubes, which are basically like cubes, then there's a level full of more cube type things that have more sides to them, kind of like your set of polyhedral dice where it has different kinds of things, and all of those figures have a name, and I'm just calling them cubes because that's easier. Then there is a layer where there's more like shards of like black eyes and stuff, and then there is the top layer, and every layer has their own cubes, and on each cube there is a world or there's stuff to do. For example, there's a big cube where orcs live, and there's a big cube where this group lives, and there's constant war and constant struggle on the cubes, but also between the cubes. But it is really hard to have a war between floating cubes, because every time you want to attack or something, or you want to do something, you need to wait until the cubes collide with each other, and nobody really knows when and how that's going to happen. So it's a really weird campaign setting, but it is that thing with the cubes that really got to me and really piqued my interest, and that's why I'm reviewing it right now on my channel. And I swear to God that before I actually decided to review this book, I did not know JVC Perry's name was in here. Yes, yet again, JVC Perry is in a book I am reviewing, and I know it sounds like I'm stalking that guy for some reason, but he just seems to be in every module that I review. So I'm a big fan of his. I became a big fan of his because his name keeps coming up. He makes awesome stuff, and he's in here again. I'm sorry. Can't help it. So what do you get when you buy Ulraunt's Guide to the Planes, Acheron? Well, you get a guide to the planes written by a fictional character, Ulraunt, to Acheron, a plane of existence of pure evil, and you get a lot of content for your money. By the way, the link is in the description below to the Dungeon Masters Guild, where you can buy it as a PDF, you can buy it as a print, you can buy it as a premium print, you can buy it as a premium print plus PDF, you can buy it as a just normal print plus PDF. There's like a gazillion buying options to buying this thing, so there's no reason for you not to buy it. Click the link in the description below. Make sure to pick it up if you're into this kind of stuff, because I know a lot of people that wouldn't really be into this stuff, but I definitely am. So you get like information on how to get to Acheron, you get information on how to stay in Acheron, how to stay alive in Acheron, who lives in Acheron, who lives on what cube in Acheron. There's a bunch, like Like really a bunch of new monsters. This thing is almost a monsters manual by itself. I mean, if you need a new monster book and you have all the other monster books, but you're still craving a new monster book, just buy this thing for the freaking monsters that are in here. I'm not kidding. I'm serious. There's a lot of monsters in here. There's a lot of player options in here, and there's a lot of new spells in here. And I will just skip through the book and tell you what I think is great about the book and a little tiny thing I have against it, like a tiny flaw it has. For me personally. But before we skip through the book, I want to really quickly strategically place my sponsor right here in the video. It is again the Reroll app, a nice little app for your smart device or your computer or your desktop computer or your laptop, where you can create your own character with stats and everything and weapons and everything, and you can make it come to life using pixel art. And people come up with the most ridiculous and most awesome PCs they can think of in this app, and it's a great little app, and it will only set you back, I think it's $10, but you get 10% discounts if you use my promo code TRSQ. Big fat bold letters when you buy it, when you download it, TRSQ. Make sure to look into the app. I have a few videos on it on my channel. It's a great app where you can, while you have your character in pixel art and you have all the stats with it, it's like a character sheet app, but with artwork. Which is cool. I use it personally. I know a few people that use it personally. So it is great. And it is Mr. Tarask approved. First things first. This is Ulraunt. A powerful wizard who visits a lot of planes of existence and other realms. And that's just his hobby. That's what he does. And one could say that he visits so many realms and planes that he's kind of an all-round person called Ulraunt. Get it? So every section of the book starts out with Ulraunt himself writing up a piece about that section of the book. There's always like a well-written personal letter or a personal thing. Like, it's like a book. You can read it like a book, entirely true, and every section has kind of its own thing about that section. For example, the book starts out with what Acheron basically is, about the 4 layers and everything, and then it just jumps into the first layer, the bottom layer, and it describes some of the cubes. That's what it does. The book goes into a layer and then describes some of the cubes, like the most important 4 or 5 cubes that are floating into this thing, but there's thousands, maybe hundreds, maybe thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, it's at the Dungeon Master's discretion, of cubes floating and colliding with each other every few hundred years. And the most important cubes are written out, and they're written out very well. There's the battle cube, there's the blue cube on the bottom half, and there's always like a cube map. One of those things that if you would cut it out, you can fold it into a cube, which would be very cool if you do that on, actually do that on a table, have a cube on the table. But you have to know that although these are in squares, the cubes are really big. Some of the cubes are as big as an entire continent, and I would even imagine some of the cubes are as big as planet Earth itself. And every cube is different, and every cube has a thing that it does. For example, the blue cube has a thing where if you jump, well, if you leave the cube, for example, you jump, or you have to, like, I don't know, you jump onto something or whatever, you technically leave the cube, and then you have to roll a save or take lightning damage, because the blueness of the cube uses lightning to grab you and take you back to the cube. But it does a lot of damage to you, but it's one of those things that makes the cube this cube. I'm saying cube a lot. After talking about a few of the cubes that are on the bottom layer of Acheron, they actually have a system to create other cubes. And this is a very cool system. It's just a bunch of random tables where you can roll or pick out stuff you like to create new cubes. What elements there are on the cube, what creatures live on the cube and everything. So you can create like a gazillion new cubes that floats together with the cubes they already talked about. Then on the second layer, the cubes become even more ridiculous. For example, there is the gray cube, where it is completely featureless on the outside. So a person on another cube would probably be like, oh, that's just a random cube, nothing to do there. While on the inside there are different cubes within cubes, all with their own very own everything on them. There's mountains on them, there's cities on them, there's everything on them. And on every corner of the cube, you can get down into a sinkhole, which is very big and very wide. And you can visit one of the lower layers of the cube until you get to the center, where there is a big ass city with smithies and everything. So it is worthwhile to go to the Grey Cube, although it is completely featureless on the outside. Or how about the Hive Cube? Do I need to say more? After they described a bunch of cubes and a bunch of random cubes and the creatures living on there and how they are at war with each other and they're constantly battling, they're constantly murdering each other, they go into the deities and other powers of Acheron. And the first deity that comes up is Bane, the god of tyranny. You know, that powerful god that is followed by almost every other evil god, and every other evil god is like afraid of Bane, the god of tyranny, like almost all of them are. Well, he is in here, and guess what? He has lore, but even more importantly, he has, drumroll, a stat block. 2 pages. No, seriously, these are actually 2 different stat blocks. One is if you use him as a greater DT, and one is if you use him as a lesser DT. One has a challenge rating of 42. 42. That would take you like 5 parties of adventurers to defeat. And the one is a lot less powerful, clocking in at a nice 38. Anyway, the great thing about this is that the writing in this book, by the way, I have to say, the writing in this book, like the font they use, is very petite, very small. Which means that there's a lot of content. So a stat block of 1 page is actually, in other books, would be a stat block of 2 or even 3 pages. These stat blocks are completely ridiculous in a good way. Oh, you can also use Bane as a mortal who has a challenge rating of 28. A lot easier. You know orcs? You know Grumsh? Well, they're in here. Together with a bunch of other orc gods, because there's an entire orc pantheon in this book. There's a few orc gods, there's stats for orcs, for the gods, and they're completely statted out. They're completely written out with lore and everything. It doesn't stop here. And also, most of these gods come with a bunch of avatars they can use to actually go down to the physical realms and meet people and spread their evilness around people and orcs and other people. And when you think they're done with talking about gods, there's an entire goblinoid pantheon. For example, this dude, whose sole purpose is defeating orcs and of course all orc gods. Then there are character options, and there is a bunch of them. There's an entire list with some of the classes even listed twice for player options, subclasses to use when you are a player in a Acheron campaign setting. And there's also 2 new races, so if you start a campaign setting in Acheron, which I would advise to do a little bit higher level than level 1 anyway, you can have one of these races. One of them is called a gnome. Just a gnome, not a something gnome, not like a rock gnome or a deep gnome or a forest gnome or whatever, just a gnome. And they're native to Acheron, to one of the cubes of Acheron. And the thing they have is they can become giant size. Yes, they're a gnome, they're very small, and then suddenly, boom, they're giant. Or they can go back to their small form with this feature, which is very cool. And there is, of course, a bladeling, which basically is like a reptile kind of person with a lot of blades attached to its body, and it's a very cool race, but I'm one of those people that would have a hard time role-playing this, but I know a lot of people that would have a great time role-playing this, so it's awesome that it's in here. And who would Mr. T be without checking out his favorite class, the Fighter? And for the Fighter, they have the subclass, the Eternal Blade, who basically is, first of all, they are an elf. They need to be an elf. It's a restriction. You can always take that restriction away. I'm the kind of dungeon master that takes those restrictions away, like race-specific restrictions. I don't really like them. It takes away, I don't know, it's just a personal opinion of mine. Anyway, they are fighters that are extremely experienced with battle. And with battle, I don't mean like dungeon delving and defeating a bunch of gnomes or whatever, or orcs or whatever, like battle giant warfare. They have led troops, or they were in the army, and they are really experienced in that giant warfare type of thing. And the Eternal Blade is kind of a mix between a fighter and a warlock without having to multi-class, if I'm making sense. They get spells. Well, first of all, they get like an invisible spirit. They get a spirit type of thing who gives them extra powers called a blade guide, and they can choose that spirit to inhabit their body, and then they gain extra powers. But they also can cast spells from the warlock spell list, and there is an entire rule set for that. These 2 pages are only for the fighter, so just to show you how much content that there is in this book. I mean, they put a lot of thought in every class. So they're kind of a warlock fighter. You have the features of a fighter, and you have some features of a warlock without having the need to multi-class, which is a good idea, because a lot of people multi-class, and it's not always necessary, because there's this. And when you even glance at these classes, you can really see that they built these classes around Acheron, the campaign setting. Because, for example, the cleric domain is called the domination domain. It is a domain where the cleric tries to dominate everything, and the entire deity they follow is about domination of entire races, entire cities, or entire cubes, or entire whatever. It is all written in a way where it has to do with giant warfare, eternal struggle, eternal battle, and all of these classes have something to do with it. I mean, the cleric is all about domination, the fighter has all experience in giant warfare, and it's completely filled with these classes that fit into the world of Acheron really well. Then there is the Bestiary. And like I said, this module could be a bestiary all by itself. It has 120 new monsters. Well, almost new. They're all based, well, most of them are based on something we know. Some of them are based on something we don't know. Anyway, there is 120 stat blocks for monsters in here. Even if you only use a tiny bit of this module, like for example a character class and a race, to build a creature, to build a character, having this bestiary with it's just enough for the money, because it's really pure quality. And I know there's bestiaries out there with a lot more monsters than 120, I know, but with this you get an entire campaign setting and a bestiary of all the beasts and all the creatures that live in this campaign setting, in this plane of existence. And there's some really wicked ones out there. By the way, if you like my videos and you want to see me continue creating these reviews for you and telling you my personal opinion on what to buy and what modules are great for your collection, make sure to click that subscribe button down there, and while you're at it, click that bell button. It's really important for a small YouTuber like me to gain exposure by you clicking the subscribe button and the bell button, because that will give me more views in the future, and more views will give me even more people that watch my videos and subscribe to my channel. Anyway, just subscribe to the channel, please. So one thing they did, which is very good, is they grouped some of the creatures together. Like for example, there's the Blade Links, which you can play as a player character. They have 4 different kinds of Blade Links in here. There's a group of orcs in here, there's void creatures, there's even Durgar. They grouped them all together like in the monsters manual for easy reference. And it is right here that I want to talk about one tiny flaw of this book, and that is some of the artwork, not all of it, but some of the artwork is really pixelated and you cannot really see it on camera, but when you have it in front of you, you see like this is a bone spear. It's called a bone spear. It's like a bug with spears in its head. And it's a very cool creature, but the artwork is all pixelated as if they didn't have a high enough resolution picture to put in this book, or there's something went wrong with the printing. I don't know. I know it's a minor flaw, but it's a flaw nonetheless. I mean, if you're really into artwork, or you want to take pictures with your phone of this artwork, don't buy this book because you will have pixelated pictures. If you just want a book full of amazing content, with very good artwork and you don't mind some of the artwork being pixelated, then just buy this book. The creatures in here go from completely ridiculous to wicked to very horrifying. Is it a worm or is it a giant pile of armed skeletons? It's both. Yikes. I don't really know what a Marcane is, but I would really like Mark Hamill to do its voice. What happens when you crossbreed a raptor with a rooster? You get this. I call it a cock-o-raptor. So a bunch of frustrated warriors who have fallen in pointless combat get together and become a rage wind. If we didn't hate rust creatures enough, there's now an ancient rust dragon. And there is a lot more to Ulraunt's Guide to the Plains Acheron. For example, after the completely ridiculously huge bestiary you get with this thing, there is another bestiary with unique NPCs and unique monsters. And there's even a section with magic items. And there's even a section with new war mounts. That's all in here, but I don't really want to show any of that because I don't want to spoil the entire thing. It's very hard for me to do a review where I don't spoil the entire thing. I know it's 306 pages, so it's really hard to spoil it all, but it's just, I need to find this line for you, and if you're interested in playing in a campaign setting that is completely evil and wicked and eternal, there is an eternal struggle between races, an eternal battle between races. If you're interested in playing there as a dungeon master or a player, pick this thing up. It is full of lore, it is full of new mechanics. There's even options in here for epic level play, but to my experience, I'm not really experienced with that, so it's not my place really to review it. There's deities in here, entire pantheons in here, there is world building, conflicts, adventure IDs, player options, races, monsters, war mounts, spells, everything you can imagine for playing or running a game in a plane of existence like Acheron. So that was my review, or flip through, or what you want to call it, of Ulraunt's Guide to the Plains Acheron, which is a really big tome, 306 pages. It's well worth your money. Some amazing writers and some amazing artists did their utmost best to create this thing, and I think if you would play a campaign in Acheron, you would be set for years to come. Really, literally, you could play in it for years because this thing is full of content. Not only is it 306 pages, it is also written in a kind of a small font, which means there's even more content. The stat blocks are very well thought out. Some of the creatures in here have like unique things I've never seen, and I really like it. Even if you're not playing in Acheron, having bits and pieces of Acheron in your game, completely amazing. I already said that. I'm just gonna leave it here. I hope your inspiration may guide you.